Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome to Shelf Stories, the channel that tells tales from games, books, and life. I am your host, Jason. Thank you so much for stopping by. And today's conversation is, I don't, I don't know how much trouble I'm going to get in, but I think it is a necessary conversation. And my friend agrees. He has agreed to come on after a Twitter conversation. His name is Jadyne Bell. J for short. He has bailed me out of pronouncing his name, but I think I got it correct. So we're going to go with J Bell. And the two of us were talking on Twitter and the conversation of geeks, like the two of us, and dating, male female relations and everything in between, and a lot needs to be said. There's a lot of stuff in our community that needs to be addressed. We wanted to do it head on with a conversation among two people who I think try pretty hard to be thoughtful about this stuff. So first of all, Jadyne, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And before we get into the conversation of du jour, I'd like to have you introduce yourself to the peoples. Not only are you an active gamer and active in the industry and also a graphic designer, you have something to pitch, my friend. So let us see if we can dig up some receptivity to what you got to pitch, my man. Go for it.
Yeah. So my name is Jadyne J. Bell. I am from South Louisiana. There's a small town in South Louisiana called Rain, where frogs actually compete to prove that they have the fastest feet in the South. I have developed a board game based on that cultural event, and I'm not going to give you the whole pitch, but basically it's a super fun, family-friendly race to the finish where you're going to be making some decisions based on your dice rolls. And I am currently trying to get it published, so we'll see how that goes.
Let's see it, man. Let's see it. You got it behind your right shoulder.
Oh, yeah. So this is the game. Got a good prototype ready to go. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, any social media channel that you prefer, and we can talk about the game.
All right, so please check this man's game out. It is called Frogs in Rain, and also you do other things in the gaming universe as well, like in graphic design, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so currently I'm working on some graphic design projects for Weird Giraffe Games. I do some board game reviews with Board Game Gumbo.
Nice.
And I am the digital presence specialist for Jellyfish Games that produced Vamp on the Batwalk, trick-taking game. Super great theme. Check it out.
Designed by my friend John Simintov, who is watching. Yeah. What's up, John? How you doing? All right. So now that we have gotten that intro stuff out of the way, we are going to get into a serious conversation. But like he's rubbing his hands together, we're already getting ready. It's one of those conversations, and I think I go through this every time I do Good Trouble. I don't know why I do this to myself, but it's like you get to a point that it's like, I got to do it. Here we go. And this conversation in particular, I mean, so much happens, and I feel like it happens every month or so, where there's some kind of sexism, misogyny, there's some kind of like incident between two people that, or something spills out in the public. And, you know, I mean, actually I can kind of like dither on about this all day because I'm delaying starting the episode because I'm a little bit, I can get a little bit skittish about it, but we had a conversation on Twitter and it was, kind of tagging in a thread. What was your interest when we started talking? Like, what did you think? And what led you to, want to come on the episode and talk about this particular topic?
Right. So I found, and this isn't exclusive to the board game community by any means, but it's where, we're currently residing. And I just noticed that in so many cases, there are incidents where guys intentionally or sometimes unintentionally make our female counterparts in our community super uncomfortable. Just really, really not being compassionate about the fact that we're all people before we're men or women. And I was fed up with just saying, I'm so sorry this happened to you. I wanted to make a difference and at least start a conversation about it to make it stop. So, yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And so we, talking privately, we wanted to frame a conversation. And this is something that we're going to be really, really careful about. So I have no less than 5 caveats that I'm going to run through before we get into this conversation. First of all, this is a good trouble episode, so we are not going to censor our language. If we have something to say, we're going to say it. But I can't imagine young kids are going to be watching this anyway. But if you have a sensitivity to blue language, again, this is an explicit language open show. The second thing is that we will largely be working within the male-female binary. I'm very well aware that there is a LGBTQ community that is active in our community, in our society. Also, people who are gender fluid and between the binary or non-binary. This is what we know. I think we're both cisgendered, heterosexual males working in this space and having a lot of those friends. So we're going to kind of talk inside the box, so to speak, but that does not exclude our LGBTQ, friends and allies. Number 3, this is mostly addressed to men, right?
Right.
I do not. I think that's the biggest thing. One of the biggest things is to, come off as, saying, okay, women need to do this. And that is not a thing that I even going to open. This is a conversation about men, to men. We invite everybody to participate. But we both acknowledge that there are some things that are happening on the male side that need to be addressed very, very directly. And that is our intention with this one. And then number 4, I say that, but it's not male bashing. Like, we're not here to trash men as much as it might kind of seem that way. No, we want to try to make things better. I like being a male. I like maleness, but there's some problems that we have to get through before we can get to, a new version of maleness. And number 5 is the one that you came up with. We should probably throw that one there, right? So hit us with number 5.
Yeah, so we're not pretending to be omniscient in any way. We aren't perfect. We don't know everything. Right. If you have listened to the couple of minutes that we've been talking and you think, these guys don't know what they're talking about. That's fine.
Nobody knows. Nobody thinks I know what I'm talking about. No.
Yeah, so we're just guys who have experiences and we're going to share them and try to help out those who want some assistance.
Right. I am a marriage therapist, so theoretically I should know things, but these experiences are very particular. And we're just, speaking from our experience, speaking our own personal truth, and maybe, other people, by sharing, we can, people can look in and, find something that can make things better. So we are going to focus on men making women feel uncomfortable, right? And to my mind, there are 2 ways that plays out. The person could be an actual jerk face, or the person could not mean it. Like you actually said it there, like they could either be intentional or unintentional. And I think that distinction gets a little bit conflated. It's like, oh man, they treated me like this, therefore they must be a jerk or whatever it is. I wanted to take some time to distinguish between those 2, because there's a lot that happens that is unintentional. We will absolutely get into the reasons why unintentional stuff keeps happening. However, there are jerk faces out there, and we need to address those jerk faces. And I think, just in my experience, and I call them jerk faces. In my real life, I call them assholes. So I just didn't want to blanket the call in the word asshole. Just like, we'll just jerk face. There you go. It's nice and neat. So then I think that they come in like the real ones, like the real intentional, like, okay, these are, this is not going well. Come in 3 types. One, there's like that super aggressive, like, just being just like, insistent and busting physical boundaries and making comments and like just really like, like that paradigm kind of like, active jerk. And then not only is there that aggressive jerk, but like a type of that is the passive aggressive jerk, the one that makes jokes, right? You're nodding. You've experienced that in your life.
Yeah.
Like, why can't you take a joke? I'm saying something about, what you're wearing, and I'm saying something about your body, but I'm just kidding. You gotta learn how to take a joke. You're shaking your head.
I can hear it. I can hear it.
You can hear it, right?
Yeah. And that same jerk face voice, it's always the same.
Right. And even when it's different, it's like kind of the same. Like there's still that same kind of like, I'm going to lob a grenade at you, but then I'm going to hide behind this rock of like, I'm being humorous or I'm being this. And like, that's again, passive aggressive. Right. So then there's that kind of jerk face. And like to them, I say, block, report, just get out of here. Easy said than done, but I want to kind of lay it out. So then there's like a second kind of jerk face, and this happens amongst geeky people, mostly people, but it happens in particular ways in our community. It is the what I call the truth teller, the person that, you know, they maybe say something and they don't even mean it, but it's like the truth. So like like the guys that always have something to say, so like a
Yeah.
female or someone else will be saying something, and then they'll like chime in. It's like, well, what about, have you thought about this, and have you thought about this, and we're thinking, going, do we need that? Do we need that
Yeah.
contribution right there right now?
Yeah. Yeah. The unhelpful guy.
The backseat driver,
Yeah.
the person who thinks they're helping, but they're just kind of like, and they think they don't, this is the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, like, pushing it a little bit further, like there's a movement among, some, like, very few males. I'm not going to let's not exaggerate this. This is very, very few, but then there's, like, people who, like, okay, what's the big deal? Like, people who are like in RPGs or in board game settings, they get like, they'll put in like, sexual encounter, or they'll put in like some kind of like, a rape situation, God forbid. And it's like, but it happens, right? you know and they
Yeah.
befuddle this, like, okay, well, if it happens, then, and if it's true, then what are you bothering me for?
Yeah. I always just do this when that happens. It's like,
And it's not
no.
aggressive. It's just they think they're telling the truth. So, like, it's people that tell the truth without love, right? And the people that just like take truth and just like, kind of, here it is, without like context, or without, I just feel like males are, I mean, do you feel like males are a little bit more prone to that than the other folk?
Yes, and I think there's reasons behind it. So as men, we've been told and taught and conditioned
Right.
to be strong and opinionated and all these other things. And a lot of times I think in those situations, men feel like, well, this is okay for me to say because this is what men do. Somebody has to say it, so I'll be that guy. It's
Right.
just, you don't
Right.
have to
Like,
be that guy. You don't ever have to be that guy.
like having the answer equals strength.
Yeah.
Having the quote unquote truth equals like a show. So it's a version of showing strength, but it's like, well, I have the truth and no one's saying the truth, so I'm going to be that person. So yeah, we don't, that's not a thing that we want to deal with either. And then there's that last type that I'm thinking of, and it's the protector type. So geeks can be very territorial. But I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah.
Like, Star Wars is the best, and like we call it gatekeeper, right? People who have the instinct to, like, well, kind of adhere to the purity of something, and like, I can't have, I want the purity of my experience, or I want like my group to look a certain way, or I want my hobby to look a certain way. So like we can be very territorial, and I think it comes out when during male interactions, with our partners as well. We get very territorial, we get very protective. Hey, who you talking to? Who's that? Oh, you talking to your ex? That's a little weird. Oh, you talking to that guy? I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And it's like, and the reason I wanted to go kind of through that little litany was like, when you, like, we think of like the jerk face, and we think of like this person that just like is a misogynist, they hate women. And when you really look at it, there's like all of these things that men do that are not out of like hatred. They're out of like, they're quote unquote just trying to help, or they're just
Hmm.
trying to be, beneficial. But telling the truth isn't always helpful. Having a protective
Yeah.
spirit is not always helpful. In fact, it could be harming.
Yeah. And it's selfish isn't the word, but it always just comes back to this idea of I know what's right based on what I know.
Right.
So I'm gonna say that and you just have to accept it kind of thing.
Right. And is it biological or is it socialized? That's like beyond our,
Yeah.
it's beyond our thing, but like it's what we see, right? And I'm hopeful that it's a lot of it socialization, because that way it can change, you know. So this is an attempt to kind of like, go in a different way with these kind of tendencies that we have. So
Hmm.
anyway, so that's like, the intentional jerk face, right? And those, like, that stuff needs to be like, checked. And I'm never a believer in like checking the person. I like to check the behavior, not the person, but like that is behavior, unquestionably behavior that needs to be checked. So then now we go to that other bucket. There are people, so people, some people do that totally intentionally and they own it and they think they're fine. But there are people that do it unintentionally. Or the people that, to me, maybe they're doing it, but they don't want to. They feel like they
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah.
They feel like they have to be the jokey person. They feel like they have to be, a little bit kind of push the border a little bit. Like they have to be kind of show a little bit of strength or, like say their opinion or something like that. Like they feel a little bit forced
Yeah.
by something. And I
And
think that's where we kind of like, I started to really vibe and talk about like, like people who are like getting away from the objective intentional jerk face. There's some people that are like really struggling with, what to do and how to do it.
yeah, and I think those are the people who are going to benefit most from this conversation.
I hope so.
I'm not, 100% certain. Maybe those jerks are going to see this as a revelation and just be like, I'm not going to be a jerk anymore. But the other guys,
I didn't know that telling
yeah,
my girl not to talk to other guys was a jerky thing to do. Why did somebody tell me?
right. But no, the guys, I think your category in those guys is the nice guys, right?
Nice guys. Yes, the nice
And
guys. Nice guys, we're talking to you now.
yeah, there's so much there because it's like I can picture back when I was growing up and like thinking I was the nice guy, and there's a lot to understand about how that title brings a sort of stigma and
Right.
this idea of entitlement because you're a nice guy, and it's like that doesn't mean anything. You could be the nicest guy in the world. That doesn't entitle you to anything at
Mhm.
all. And the perception that nice guys always finish last, so nice guys don't get the girl, all that stuff. We have to unthink that. We have to be better than that, right?
Right.
Because it's not true.
Well,
It's
okay.
an
So
opinion.
let's break down like that nice guy thing. So like what we're talking about under the hood, I think, is loneliness. Right.
Mhm.
Nice guys are, quote unquote nice guys, right? We are so afraid to be lonely. And so many of us feel lonely so much. Like, like the whole nice guys finish last thing is like I think the perception is that, well, the jerks faces, they're getting the girls.
Yeah.
Right. I look at, and I speak, let me speak my own personal truth. I'm still a nice guy. I'm luckily married. But I was a nice guy for a long time. And I had so many experiences of talking to women and, the women would say, again, I'm not going to not see anything towards women, but like, just like the nice guy experience of this sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where, a female would say, oh, my boyfriend's such a jerk and I'm dating all these people and they're all jerks. Why aren't there any good guys? I'm looking for a good guy. And I'd be like, wait, what's wrong with me? I feel like I was shouting into the void.
It's like a song that every nice guy hears when they wake up in the morning. It's your daily song. But you're so right. Like, and it took me so long to realize that when you hear that, you you're kind of hearing what you want to hear because
Right.
you're imagining yourself as what she should have, and that's not the truth.
Right.
Because
Because girls will say that they'll say like I want somebody who's attentive and who's this and who's this and that like sticks to the nice guy brain and it kind of creates what you were talking about before with that entitlement thing where it's like well if they want that then that's what I got to offer so it's like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
what's up with that and we don't know how to really express that so it comes out in all these different kind of stilted ugly ways where and we get resentful right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of the comments and a lot of like we talked about the sexual jerk and the physically aggressive person or like or like the overprotective or whatever it is. A lot of that comes from frustration. Of like I'm trying here, I'm trying to find the girl, and our society I think is very socialized towards like pushing people towards being in a relationship. Every
Absolutely.
movie is about somebody in a relationship.
Absolutely.
There aren't any movies about, not too many movies about single people. And most of them are like, like my daughter watching Disney princesses, and she's getting cultured. Every princess has like a male, except for Elsa. Elsa
Yeah,
is the holdout from
yeah.
Frozen. She doesn't have
And
anybody.
and Moana.
Okay, so so
They're
we're
getting
starting
there.
to get
They're
some
slowly
newer,
getting there. Yeah.
but we're still catching up in that thing. And it sounds like, I mean, it's just our whole society is acculturated towards like, you are a successful person if you find a mate. And the longer that the nice guy, quote unquote, goes without success in that area, the more that frustration builds up. And I
Yep.
saw something like this was, so there's a context to this conversation, right? There was an incident. I'm not going to talk about the whole incident, but there was an incident a little while ago now, as we speak, of a situation of domestic violence kind of like escalating. And I'm not going to say what it is, but like that's kind of what the scenario was. And some comments went around, and more than one person said there's a lot more problem with domestic, incidents with, stuff towards women that we absolutely think it's a problem in our community. It's a problem among geeks, and it's a special problem among geeks. And that's why, because we are the betas, right? If we were the alphas, we'd be in other hobbies, we'd be playing sports, we'd be doing whatever. Like, we're the person that had to go to play D&D, had to close the doors and had to like hide from some of us have gotten bullied.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
Like, so like, and
Yeah.
a lot of us kind of made it through our school not in the best shape and not educated to deal with our emotions. So then now we're in this now, we're, fully grown adults, not having had the education and not having had the ability to relate on a great level with, people's opposite sex. And we got to figure it out. And we do, as a lot of us don't have the tools. And so, when we don't have the tools, we're going to use a hammer.
Yeah.
We're going
Yeah.
to use the hammer, and then we get frustrated. And so it's like, I know we're kind of talking around stuff, and it's a very, very hard thing to talk about, but I hope that people are getting the understanding that like we're trying to shed light on something. We're trying to shed light on some pain.
Mhm.
A
Yeah.
lot of times the mistreatment of females comes from not just from male assholery, but male pain and male like fear of loneliness.
Yeah. That kind of that kind of bleeds into one thing that I definitely want to bring up.
Sure.
And that's sort of like the general idea of interaction, right? Because you're going to always interact with women, you're going to interact with men or whoever you're attracted to, right? And for guys, for me, I know that it has always sort of been a freaking three ring circus juggling act
Oh
of
man.
trying to figure out, okay, there's a girl who just walked up to the bus stop. What do I do? And the first thought is do nothing. But then comes the loneliness, the frustration, the thought of, am I afraid? You know, my friends are gonna think, whatever they think. And then you're like, okay, I can say something, but what do I say? And then you think, what is she gonna say when I say something? Is she gonna be mad at me? Like there's this juggling act that we do, and it's so hard to try to figure out. I don't know how people date now. Like I am so lucky that I don't have to do that. I know there's Tinder and all the other dating apps that make things super easy, but if you're not really into that and you're looking for like a serious
Yeah, it
sort
makes
of
meeting people easy, but it makes actually forming the relationship harder. So
yeah,
we have more access to more people than ever, but we have less ability to actually carry forward the stuff of interaction because we have less to
yeah,
talk about because I don't know, like we have this kind of like functional mindset of like if we're talking to you and I'm not going to get something out of it, then I'm wasting my time, you know. And that again, frustration builds. Like if I'm talking to you and I don't, I'm not interested in you. Trying to get, maybe I'm a little bit interested in you, but like to get something, right? And
yeah.
then it's like, and if I don't get it from you, next swipe, 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 swipe.
And it's crazy because like in those, I call them real life interactions because it's not on your phone and it's not made easy because you have to actually like be face to face with someone and convince them to usually get their phone number. Like it's so hard to even figure out what do you want from that interaction because movies make it seem easy. Movies make it seem like you could comment on her shoes or her book or whatever and it'll just be magical and she'll want to date you or go to dinner on Saturday. And it's not that simple. It's not at all. And
Right.
I think that's a part of where the problem is. We have these unrealistic expectations set for us as men because we think I can go away from this conversation like that and I'm going to be on 5 and 6 dates with this person that I just met. And from my experience, it's never happened that way.
Right.
So I think men have to realize that we don't live in a rom com. All that's fake, right? And there are less stressful ways to approach dating and meeting women.
Mhm. So that creates a vicious cycle, right? Like what you're talking about is, that's how we're acculturated, right? We're acculturated to kind of like put that out because we're competing, right? It's almost like, I better say something or do something before somebody else gets in there, some jerk face, and and because they're better at it and they sweep us up. So we feel this kind of like pressure behind us in the back of our brains to like, say something, do something or whatever. And then on the female side, it's like, I just want to hang out. What do we, and they, there's that they feel uncomfortable and they feel pressure, but like the male feels like, so what is the worst thing? What is the worst thing that can happen to a male that is single? The friend zone.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. I didn't even think we were gonna bring that up,
Of
but
course, it is so, because it's loneliness. Like that is the gateway to loneliness. So like, so I see on. So part of what we talking about with that original thread was like, so I think it was Omari Akil was talking about like, okay, men got to chill with their vibe, right? Men got to stop putting out that vibe that we're talking about. I'm like, okay, I'm going to ask you out. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Try to be safe around people. And Omari has that vibe, for various reasons. Of like he puts out a vibe being safe around females, and it's like the point of it. So this is like, okay, so men, try to be that. And then when a man hears that and processes that, they think, oh, they want me to just like jump into the friend zone, jump into the safe. And, and when it's somebody who is lonely, then it's like, okay, jump into feeling neutered and feeling like you don't have a chance and feeling like you're just eternally lonely. So it's like, on one end, we feel this pressure from females, and thank goodness they're speaking up more and more and saying, look, chill with your, horny vibes and chill with whatever that energy is. But then you have that other, kind of from the back end going, well, you need to, don't be in the friend zone, don't be lonely.
yeah,
Keep on, keep it up, put the game up, do something. So like, I feel like that we're feeling this double pressure, or some men are, thankfully the two of us have gone through the wars a little bit and come out
yeah,
the
man.
other
I got
side.
battle
Someone
scars.
chose us, and
I
I'm
got so
also
many
married.
battle scars.
So right. Oh man.
But it's funny
I'll
you
get to
bring
battle
that
scars in
up
a second, but yeah. So like,
because
so the
like
friend zone really got us to another level of like thinking like that. When guys hear that, they're like, oh man, you need to be a little bit more friendly. Guys, so many of us take it that way of like, well, I don't want to be in a friend zone. Oh, that's loneliness. But guess what, guys? Guess what? Anyway, yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say like I'm not here to give dating advice, but I find that it's easier, and I'm talking to guys here, like it's so much easier, I find, to get into a relationship with someone who you were already friends with and just so happen to think we could possibly work as more than friends, we could try it this because you already know each other. There's no weird conversation about like, hi, what's your name kind of thing. Like you get past a lot of things when you stop trying to introduce yourself to random people and just you don't, and this kind of bleeds into a lot of other things, but being happy, I think, with yourself will allow you
Right.
to make friends. And then you're more comfortable around women. And then they're more comfortable around you because you're not desperate to stay out of the friend zone and get a girlfriend or find someone to date. It's just you're happy with you. And they see that. And it's kind of like, okay, well, maybe this person would be a great person to be with because they're already happy with themselves. Like it's way easier on everyone involved.
Easier said than done. Like, I mean, so much of our society like builds up our self-esteem on achievement. on doing things
Yep.
like achieving the job and achieving some status stuff and achieving success in romantic relationships, right? And where we don't have that success, external success, then we define ourselves like lower and lower and lower
Oh
and
yeah.
lower, and we get into that vicious cycle of like, we hear person, like, Jay Bell, good looking guy, seems like he has a lot going on. He could be friends with a girl. Look at you, you could be friends with a girl, and the girl's eventually going to kind of, figure out that he's a great person to be with. That's not me. I'm overweight and I got acne. I got this, and this. It's like, and I got, I have girls all
Mhm.
the time that are, my friend, quote, so to speak. And that's another thing, like, friend, really? Like, we're not really friends. I can't call you. It's not even, it's a misnomer. It's the acquaintance zone, and
Yeah. Yeah.
what ends up happening is like, I can't let myself get into that spot. And because the worst thing in the world is to be like, 24, 25, 26. And I speak, as a psychotherapist who has a lot of male clients who are at that, in their 20s and 30s, and their homes are silent. They got nothing going on and they're lonely, and it's like an epidemic. And like, I feel like, and what you said before about like, feeling happy about yourself, I mean, because they've defined success externally in terms of
Yeah.
achievements, then they get locked into this idea that they need that female in order to be happy. And
Right.
that's where things really, really go south. And that's
Yeah.
where a lot of the, behavior, terrible behavior, comes out, because it comes out in that desperation to get somebody, to find somebody. I need to say this comment. I need to, flag to the female that I'm not just like friend zone material.
Yeah. So Jason, like, I was gonna save this for a little bit later, but the movie Hitch, right? With
Sure.
Will Smith, he's whatever.
It's a
I had
great
the
movie.
opportunity.
I love Hitch.
Yeah, it's really, really good movie. And when I was in college, I had the opportunity to meet David Coleman, who that movie is based on. He calls himself the real life Hitch. So I remember he was giving us a seminar, and I'm one of the few guys in the auditorium with like 150 girls, whatever. And he's giving this speech, and I'm like, when's the dating advice coming? But his entire presentation was about self-love and about finding who you want to be for yourself, because that's what it's all about. And I remember when I asked him at the end of the presentation, because I was recently out of a relationship that I didn't understand why it ended. And I asked him, I was like, David, what would you say is the only time a person is not supposed to be in a relationship? And his response was super simple. He was like, if you're not happy with yourself. And I was like, that makes sense. Yeah. I used to be that guy who thought, I can't be the attractive guy, the guy that girls want. And I find it's all about just being happy with yourself. Because one, if you're happy with yourself, you're not going to be looking to change anything. It'd be nice if you had a girlfriend, but it doesn't matter because you're happy with yourself. And then it gets easier. It really does.
And that happiness has to come internally.
Yeah.
Like the so much of, and a lot of our conversation has been about like socialization, and so much of the socialization is about like kind of getting it externally and getting it, from like, I need to have the free, I need to have the mate, and I need to have the career, I need to have this and this, and then I'm good. It's putting the cart before the horse. Like, I mean, we need to figure out how to kind of be happy on the inside. And now we're starting to get into some personal stuff, and I'll share a little bit about, because I don't want to just come off as like, okay, let's spot off advice and everything. Like, this is stuff that's, I smiled inside when Jay mentioned battle scars, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I got plenty. I got plenty. So I remember being in high school, and I didn't date at all. Not at all in high school. I was nerd central. I was, playing D&D and, doing whatever. And like, even if a female like showed attention, it was like, what is, didn't, I was just fumbling. I had no idea what was going on. And I felt that, and I think at the time, like, I don't know, because I've always been kind of moral, like, and I grew up like with a sense of like God inside me, want to be a religious person. And, I've had it in me that I want to be everybody's friend. And, so like I was friends with everybody, which meant like I would not, open up the romantic door and not give out, I try really hard, right, to not give out romantic vibes. And then, the prom came and every one of my friends had dates. I had no date, right? And, I tried to make the best of it and do whatever. But, then I graduated high school, went to college, and like, you know, I lost touch with almost everybody. And it's like, what did that get me? I'm lonely as hell. And I'm trying to be everybody's friend, trying to like, I'm lonely as hell. So then like, that was like the first phase of my life. And the second phase of my life, I was like, I kind of that resentfulness. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, like you kind of go on and like not having a lot of success. And I mean, I did have a long-term relationship during this time, but that ended terribly. Like you said, like you alluded to before, there was a relationship that ended terribly. Mine broke up with me over AIM.
And
Remember AIM, AOL Instant
oh
Messenger?
gosh.
Ooh,
I'm not gonna say how old I was. I just got to just continue the story.
I'm a little bit older than you, just a bit. But yeah, and that was a complete and utter like nuclear abomination. And I don't know, like I mean, I got into like it was on my like mid to late 20s, and I got into, hanging out with my friends, and like, I had a lot of friends who, were better at this stuff, and I'm like learning from them. And but unfortunately, you know, they often like what do young people do? They go out and drink. That's what we do, right? God forbid we're going out to a board game night, but we're going out to like, the museum or the other things. Like if we're going out, especially now, we're going to drink. And, having that like kind of like rising resentfulness combined with, a habit of like of drink. I didn't even like drinking. I just like felt like I needed to. And, I just got myself into some really terrible situations and doing some pretty terrible things. Like I was that jerk face. I'm not afraid to admit it. I say
Yeah.
like, okay, don't be a jerk face. I was that jerk face. People, making dumb comments, touching women where they don't need to be touched, just like, and I'm not going to go into all the gritty details, but just kind of like speaking. This is speaking from personal experience, and it cost me a lot. There's it having some incidents where people just started thinking of me differently now. It's like, is he an intentional asshole now for what he was doing? And I just lost a lot. And so then this was like, so like everything kind of fell apart for different reasons. And then I don't know, like for whatever reason, my life came together and I started to get what you were talking about. It's like, look, I have to fix myself. I have to fix myself. And by the grace of God, I did. And I was able to, drop out totally of society, do some yoga, lose some weight, get right my spirit, focus on school. And, in 2012, it began to kind of like really turn around for me. I stopped
Yeah.
drinking. And to this day, like my wedding day was my last day that I've had a drink. Like that was the thing that like, I just don't like me when I'm
Mm-hmm.
drinking. And even I don't know if I would be that same way now because my life is totally different, but it puts me back in that space and I don't want to do that anymore to women or to myself or to anybody. And by fixing me and addressing my depression and addressing my frustration, I eventually was able to kind of attract somebody, and we're 9 years married or 9 years together. And what is it, 5 years married or whatever it is. And we're happy. And that was hard won. That was with a lot of scars. And so when I see like a male make a comment to a streamer, when I see people defend this person's right. Oh, that person mentioning rape at a D&D table, that don't worry about that. I mean, that's just a thing that happens all the time. People like whether you're doing it or you're defending it, I go back to that. Oh man, that guy might be afraid to be lonely. That guy thinks that he might need to be that way, be a jerk
Yeah.
in order to get what they want.
Yeah.
And it's like people, I cannot. That is not the way to be. It really is. It is not the way to be.
Yeah. Going like when you mentioned that again, it just brought me back to thinking like we can't form a habit of excusing that kind of stuff.
Right.
I I really don't understand how some people don't see how detrimental that can be to like any person who's like putting himself out there to just like kind of shut them down or support someone who is giving them a hard time emotionally, sexually, anything like that. Like, how do you? I think that men and people in general have to be like super thoughtful more than they are. And just think about what your actions might actually mean to the other person before you choose them,
Right.
because it seems like a lot of times that's the case. We just don't even realize how much you might be affecting someone just by supporting or not believing them in a sense. You know what I mean?
Right. Think about why you're doing it. Like if you're doing it because you're a jerk face, then well, we got something for you, you know.
Yeah,
But if you're doing it because
yeah,
you're lonely and you're doing it because you feel that pang, you're tired of those lonely nights, you're tired of those thoughts, you're tired of being in the prison of your mind, and you're either trying to like give the signal that you're somehow like not just a friend zone guy, or if you are just talking out of frustration, like that is this is our invitation. Please get a handle on that. Please, reach out, get help, talk. And this is one of the things, like, men are terrible at this stuff. We're socialized to be terrible at this stuff of talking, kind of openly and being vulnerable. And I guess this is one of the things I really wanted to do with this conversation, was like kind of provide a model for vulnerable speak, a model for just like, real talk and addressing things that maybe occur in the back of our minds. And this is, and like, Jay, you were so wise to talk about, like, this isn't, we're just two guys. I can share my experience. There's probably a wealth of different experiences out there that people have that drive them to do. Maybe they are good people. Maybe they are trying to help them. They could be a good person, but life circumstances kind of like weighed on them and encourage that terrible behavior. The first step is, like in that on that path to like be happy, like as Jay was talking about, the first step is admitting that you're unhappy and really opening up and processing about that.
yeah. And Jason, one thing that I wanted to mention, because I think it's very important for our guys out there, all of our fellas, um, throughout my dating history, I have found out and realized that optimism can be your worst enemy sometimes.
Oh,
You know,
right.
like all of my guy friends, I encourage them, look, you got to be a realist, man. You got to be hyper realistic and not take anything she says with hope, because I think that men have a tendency to be aggressively optimistic
Mhm.
and dangerously optimistic, you
we
know.
filter we filter hard. Like we latch on to the one or two things that they said or the one little moment, and it like we just blow that up. Because
Yeah,
like, oh man, this could be it, I'm so this, that,
yeah,
and the third thing, and I'm gonna blow up their phone, and I'm gonna like, make sure they're still interested, and why aren't
yeah.
they
And that
talking
was
to
me.
me?
That was me, you know. And it just takes time to realize, like, there is no pressure. You don't have to constantly think, okay, I have a shot, and if I have a shot, I have to chase it. That's not the case.
Right.
You really don't.
Right. You really don't. And I want to try to be as explicit as I can that, there's so many guys out there that feel like that. Like how many times have you said in your life? It's like, I know this, but I feel otherwise.
Yep.
And I want to try to get to that deeper level of acknowledging people's feelings. Yes, you feel like that, time is ticking. You feel like there's a rush. It's not true. Like if you can fix yourself and you can make better, like just platonic connections, you might take that edge off. And I know that's hard, and it's getting harder in this pandemic, and it's getting harder in our society, but we're not going to re-engineer how human beings really work in like a generation. We still work that way. We still need those many, many connections. We can't just put all of our apples in the romantic bucket where so many of us are suffering, and you know, it's coming out in this terrible behavior. And we really need to we can do the best we can to get a handle on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And I think
yeah.
there's something I want to offer for, I guess, the guys who feel like they are, happy with themselves, and or the guys who are kind of jerks. This might be a bit of knowledge for a jerk, sure. 'Cause I don't
I
really
think the jerks have tuned out by now.
yeah, that's the thing. Like those guys don't listen to me. I don't talk to those guys much. So
Right, right.
if you're listening, sure. But so I think about like interacting with people, right? And thinking about how anytime I interact with a person, I'm cautious I consider it compassionate to think this person might be dealing with something that I don't realize. So careful. And I think the most common response to that is, well, that's their issue. Why should I adjust how I am or who I am for them? And my immediate thought is because it's the right thing to do. Like, if you can't care about somebody on that basic level to consider how you're talking to them, why are you even interacting with them in the first place? Like, it doesn't make sense. So be compassionate whenever you interact with anyone. Guys, when you interact with a woman, think about the idea that jerks before you, nice guys before you, tons of guys before you, anyone before you has interacted with her, and she might be carrying something. So just be cautious.
We all have scars. We talked about the men scars, and I've kind of talked a little bit about mine. And we all have them. It's not just us. It's not just our scars that need to be dealt with first. Like, females are so scarred, and I'm gonna have more content, another project that I'm working on to kind of have female voices kind of share some of that stuff more explicitly, because I cannot speak to that experience, and nor do I want to, um, because I can't. But I think that's so wise, about like going into every interaction. I think we can kind of start to wrap it up and talk about like future focus. So we have a couple on the table right now. One, own your depression, own your hurt and your loneliness, and own what it may be driving you to do, and just own that, and reach out to sensitive males in your life, or whoever can you feel like can help. Number two, acknowledge the fact that we're all kind of broken. We all have had interactions that have been problematic. It's not that, like you talked about the entitlement way earlier in the call, that entitlement that, like, because I'm a nice guy, then they should, the female should, want, be open to what I am putting out.
Yeah.
And it's like, no.
Yeah.
The female should be open to nothing. The female should be open to a genuine relationship, and if it's up to them that they feel it, then that's fine. There is no like, oh, I'm a nice guy, therefore ... There is none of that.
Yeah. There's no XP for being a nice guy.
No, we don't get no. Even if we feel like that resentfulness, and even if we feel like we have to, I'm gonna try being a jerk. Well, no. If you are a nice guy,
it doesn't work.
If you say you're a nice guy, go then bust beyond the nice guy in your way. Be a compassionate guy. Not being a nice guy is not enough. Got to be a compassionate guy, as you were saying before. And that compassion is, we're all hurt. We all experience hurt, and try to remember that in our interactions. You had a couple more, right? Just like, kind of like ground level stuff that I remember you talking about.
I think so. It was just like, don't be over optimistic, take everything for face value. You got to be very conscious that the women that you interact with, they always have feelings about everything you're talking about. They have thoughts on what you're thinking. And I mean, I'll give a quick example. Like, one of my girlfriends in college broke up with me because I didn't consider that she had like expectations and feelings about what was happening in a relationship. I thought we were fine, and she just blew up one night because she wanted to go out with me. It was her first time. Well, it never actually happened. So she's like, I thought we were finally gonna do it, finally gonna go out and have some fun with our friends, and I screwed it up. And she was like, I can't, because you've let me down. You never even asked me. And I was like, I didn't know. So you have to be really, really conscious. And once you're in that relationship, think about the fact that you're not the only person in that relationship.
Right. I have had a female break up with a male, and this was like in my marriage therapy session, over the male's inability to wash dishes. Like, it was a decently long-term relationship. It was like 10, 15 years. And, it's like, can I do the dishes? Can you do the dishes for me? Can you do the dishes for me? Can you do the dishes for me? And it was like, oh, later. And the way they described it was like, every time I asked this male to do the dishes, it was like, and he said no, it was like this. Drifting further and further apart. And I tell that to people. It's like, the female will break up with you because you continually rejected their plea to do the dishes. Speaking to that thing of like, like, just have the mind open, have the ears open, take that, address your filter. Don't just filter out, things that you don't want to hear, and filter in the things that you do want to hear.
Yeah.
Get that confirmation bias going. Try to be as receptive as possible, and that's not easy. That's why it goes back to rule 1 and 2. Know yourself, and then connect with other people. They'll help you address those actually is that kind of connecting with other people on a platonic level, did that help you kind of like move through some of your battle scars?
I would say yeah. Um, because sadly I had like bad breakup after bad breakup after bad breakup. And the final one actually took my best friend from me. They did not stay together. Ridiculousness. But so from that moment, I was kind of just like, I don't even like trust people as friends. And then I like became very isolated from myself. And then it slowly got better. Like I was happy with me, making new friends. And then my now wife actually met me. And I remember she hates when I say this, but it's so very true. Like I saw a picture of her and I was like, wow, she is gorgeous.
Mm.
And I was like, I don't even want to get to know her because I know it's gonna be bad. I know it's gonna be bad. And sure enough, she likes to draw. And I was like, that's cool. And then we had the same favorite color. And she was interested in me. And she was like, hey, my friend thinks nice guys don't get the girl. And I was like, well, he's kind of right. And she was like, what do you mean? And so then we started talking, and now we're married.
Nice. Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, my girl and I connected over karaoke. We were online dating. We met over OkCupid, and I put karaoke in my profile, and and I guess that's a kind of a hopeful thing. It's like we're not saying like, okay, accept your fate. And I've had that people get pushed back too. It's like, well, you're telling me to be happy with myself. Does that mean I have to just be happy being lonely? No, absolutely not.
No,
That
yeah.
is not the same thing. Like being happy with yourself is not the same thing. And maybe that's probably a good way to end it. It's not the same thing as accepting being lonely. Loneliness sucks. Loneliness is garbage. We're not meant for that. We're not meant to just be in a house alone. Like the difference is like the way you handle frustration. Right? There's a difference between this sucks and I'm gonna let it ruin my life. Right? Or I'm going to let it dominate my thinking and trap myself in these kind of like tunnel vision mindsets of like, okay, I'm lonely. I have to fix it. I'm lonely. I have to fix it. I have to fix loneliness. If I don't fix loneliness, then my life is over. And it's like, well, there's a difference between that mindset, which is terrible, versus I'm lonely. I need to build up myself, the other parts of myself, as much as possible. I need to fix my platonic friendships. I need to be successful in my career. I need to, be mindful of my body, be mindful of my spirit. All these let me build all that up. And then hopefully, and raise your game. Like I like being a male. It's like, there's game to this stuff. So it's like, talking to people about like having a better game.
Yeah. And yeah, I wasn't even gonna comment on that just because like I was good at meeting girls and blah blah blah. But like it was like that you don't need that. You really don't. I am such a strong believer in what you just said. Like if you are happy with yourself, it makes finding relationships so easy because you're just not really lonely, and you are
You are
so
lonely, but you don't feel that sting. Like,
yeah.
like you always lonely if you don't have that, partner, if that's kind of how you're built. Some people love to be single, and that's fine. But like that, we're meant to be together. But it doesn't have to sting as bad when
Yeah.
you have a well-developed rest of your life.
Yeah. Because you're always gonna like you're always gonna see someone. If you have a hobby, you're gonna like interact with a woman, and it's gonna be easier if you're happy with yourself.
Right. And when I talk about raise your game, I think like I actually saw this thread. This was Monique, the Game Freak Geek girl, had a thread. One of the tips she said, I thought it was so awesome. It was like, if you want to compliment a female, pick
Yes.
one, make the compliment, but compliment something they can have control over.
Mm-hmm.
Don't talk about their figure. Don't talk about, talk about their shoes. Talk about their
Yeah.
hair. talk about something, or talk about like, the way they set up their stream if it's a streamer, in that
Uh-huh.
particular case, like, that kind of thing. Do and you can get feedback from successful people who had success in relationships. You can get feedback from females. There's nothing stopping that.
Yeah, I
you know
remember when Monique said that. I found it so funny because, and maybe it's just the fact that I've been raised by a single mother, and there's mostly like women in my family, tons of women. I've always been that guy to like comment on, "Hey, I like your boots," or "Hey, that's a really cool scarf," And she was right. It makes them
right.
happier with your your compliment because you're not. It just seems like you care more,
Right.
because you're complimenting things that they have control over.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's what we all want, right? We all want to be, have that mutual kind of complementarity going. Like we don't want to, and maybe guys are in a situation of like not kind of quote unquote needing that, or not being socialized to need like compliments like that. But we want that. So we want that too. And that goes back to that compassion piece. Like, okay, just give what you want to get, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think we could kind of keep on going, but I think that kind of hits all the points that I wanted to hit. What do you think?
yeah, yeah. This is just the beginning of the conversation.
Right.
There'll be more streams with people smarter than me and Jason, but this is just the start of it. We want to really open the door.
Open the door. These conversations like this don't have to be like disaster. And we're putting this on Zoom. We're putting this out into the world, and who knows? I hope I didn't say anything that will piss people off. Jay, I'm more confident with Jay. He seems like he's just so built to be like nice and not confrontational. I don't know,
I can't help
but
it, man.
it does open. Like we hope to open a door to have people like own their hurt and reach out. I've actually had some conversations just privately, with people who experienced some levels of pain, and obviously I can't be that person's therapist. I can't be for them, but like just to kind of, I'll drop a little note saying, okay, do a little bit of feedback, and that helps too. Like okay, I'll direct them somewhere. It's like okay, yeah, no, I feel it, I feel you, it's all good. Let's, and kind of like okay, do you have somebody in your life that you can open up to, and just that whole process. Well, that's open. I'm in fact I'm inviting that
Yeah,
and I'm sure like, and you were so enthusiastic about the conversation. I'm sure like if someone had to, talk about, just like initial, some things you were mentioning before, or feelings or compassion, like, you know, you're there, you respond to people. It's all good.
yeah, yeah. You can reach out to me. I mean, follow me, but more importantly, like follow Matthew Hussey, who is a professional relationship advisor. Follow David Coleman. Follow people who can give you like solid advice. But if you feel comfortable reaching out, it is what it is.
Where can we hit you up?
Uh, Twitter, that's the easiest place to find me at the J Bell, TheJaybell. That's where I'm at.
All right. So, all right. So we've talked about the men, and we're going to bring it back. We're going to talk about this man is a graphic designer. He is active in the gaming community, and he's trying to get this game signed. There it is.
Yeah, hit me up if you want to play that. It's available to play for free online via Tabletop Simulator.
Jay, thank you so much for reaching out, and thank you so much for helping me, on this journey to address some serious things.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
If you could change your mind, you could change the world. So until next time, later, everybody.